Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and tune this puppy up for you guys. I'll show you how to tune the carburetor on an HM80 8 horsepower Tecumseh or equivalent. They're all pretty similar as far as the tunable Tecumseh carburetors go. So one thing you want to make sure of is that the engine is fully warm and at operating temperature when you tune it, because that's when you're gonna be running the motor the most, obviously. So we're gonna go ahead and start this puppy up. It hasn't been tuned yet, so I don't know how it's gonna run, but we're just gonna let it warm up, running however it's gonna run, and then we'll go from there. Once I let it idle for 5-10 minutes and just get it nice and warm, and then we'll go ahead and tune it up for you, and I'll show you how to do that. A little bit more choke. Now, when I'm showing you these adjustments coming up here in a minute, when I'm turning the screws left, it's getting richer, and when I'm turning the screws to the right, it's getting leaner. Now here I'm setting the high speed adjustment first. You can hear it even out and then get worse as I turn the screw. I'm just going to continue to set it until I like the way that it runs, and it runs nice and smoothly. The stock screw settings for the high and low on a carburetor of this vintage is 1.5 turns out each from the fully seated position. Here I'm going to be adjusting the idle speed up slightly, just so it doesn't die as easily. I'm then moving on to adjust the low speed jet, which was me messing with the lower screw there. Here you can see me messing with the low speed jet a little bit more. Then back to idle, turning it back down a little bit. It was idling a little bit too high. We're just in the fine-tuning process now, and this is really just until your ear tells you where it needs to be. You want it to run smoothly, and you want the idle to be fairly low. You don't want to have an idle that's midway in the RPM range. That's the point of an idle, is to have the motor run as low as it can without dying. Now this here is a pretty good example of how it should run when it's tuned right at high speed. The engine speed is a little bit high, but I turned it back down a little bit. It was running just a little bit over what it should. I'm going to turn it back down to idle here, and this is what a decent idling engine should sound like. It's a little bit low, so I turn it up just slightly, but this is around what it should sound like when you're done tuning the carburetor. Now, even though this carburetor was tuned pretty well, it was still popping and crackling every once in a while. And I found out afterwards that the cause of that was actually a bad spark plug. It was carboned up and kind of junky. I replaced it with a new one, and it ran perfectly well. So if you're still having issues after you tuned your carburetor, I definitely check the spark plug. I had never seen a spark plug cause that many running issues in a small engine before. Now this is about as low of an idle as I could get out of the engine and have it still run. I wouldn't run the engine this low. It isn't able to build oil pressure. But this was just an experiment to see how low I could get it to idle.